Хороший вопрос. Я не знаю, что они могут. То есть у меня есть предположение, что они могут иметь под нормализацией байеса?
Вот мы чертим вот этот вот normalize. Внутри мы пишем вот этот сам bias, формулу байеса. Нормализация, это, я так понимаю, расстояние.
Нормализация, то есть я понимаю, что такое нормализовать наши фичи, то есть или стандартизировать наши фичи. Ну, когда мы их нормализируем, условно говоря, мы приводим их к стандартному нормальному распределению. То есть мы просто вычитаем мин и делим на среднеквадратическое отклонение, на standard deviation. То есть просто чтобы наши данные все были в нормальном диапазоне, они были там сильно разбросаны. Это нормализация фич, а не нормализация байеса. А нормализация байеса, то есть вот это...
Если байес, например, тоже ненормально распределен, значит нормализация это его приведение к...
Нет, тут не обязательно, что данные были нормально чтобы нормализировать, просто нормализация это один из способов того, чтобы диапазон чисел был более стандартным. То есть есть стандартизация, там есть нормализация, они все в принципе делают то же самое, приводят обычно диапазон фич, там или от 0 до единицы, или от минус единицы до единицы, просто делаем это чуть по-разному. То есть один там нормализация, мы читаем мин на standard deviation, и не обязательно, что распределение должно быть нормальное, это просто такая технология. А другая, там можно вместо того, чтобы вычитать или до standard deviation, еще там как-то читать другие формулы тоже, ну, которые делают то же самое, приводят к диапазону между минус 1 и 1, просто они не нормализуют, а скейлят по-другому.
Ну, такое непросто.
А вот нормализация байеса, я не знаю, как они... То есть вот этого байеса, который там, ну, смотря для чего его нормализировать, для оптимизации, ну, это функция, то есть как бы мы ее там не меняли, не нормализировали, решение от этого не поменяется.
Ну, по сути, это тоже вот значит минимизация расстояния между бетами предсказанными минус бетами якобы настоящими. Ну, как бы предсказанным Y и настоящим Y. И нормализация это якобы вот это и есть расстояние.
Ну...
Просто зачем нам, ну, как бы...
Тогда это имеется в виду между тест-сетом и тренинг-сетом, и там...
Ну или даже просто как бы между Y predicted и Y стандартным. Просто я тогда не понимаю, зачем нам вот эти вот нормализация нулевого вот этого порядка, первого, второго.
Норма, может иметься в виду, или нормализация? Что?
Ну, норма. Вот что вообще это значит норма?
Норма это функция. Функция нормы. То есть норма это вот эта функция, которая имеет эту форму, вот она записывается вот так вот. То есть это вот функция нормы. Но норма вектора x, норма t вектора x, это имеет вот такая функция. Вот. Но на самом деле, для чего используются функции нормы, они меряют расстояние. Ну или то есть, может быть, в Euclidean спейсе, если вторая норма, или в другом спейсе, там, по-моему, в первом, когда мы говорим, это называется Minkowski дистанс или что-то такое, там. И что оно просто означает? У нас x это вектор, мы, опять же, как функция, мы вводим свести к одному числу, которое будет означать расстояние между координатами вектора x. Вот и все, что такое функция норма. Поэтому она везде используется для расстояния. То есть ошибка это есть расстояние между там, в данном случае вот, между нашими target и того, что наша модель предиктит. Поэтому норма это на самом деле как можно посчитать ошибку, и вот если мы используем вторую норму, это mean square error, если мы используем первую норму, это mean absolute error. То есть просто остальные нормы не имеют смысла, потому что они не конвексные. Вот и все. Поэтому никто, кроме mean square error и mean absolute error, не использует. Почти. Ну, есть еще, мы дойдем есть еще log, loss, норма, потому что, опять же, смотря, это же потому, что у нас тут все очень хорошо, потому что это линейная функция, а поставим сюда нелинейную функцию, это первая и вторая норма могут стать неконвексными, смотря какая там нелинейность. Ну, вот это то, что происходит в логистической регрессии. То есть в логистической регрессии народ не использует mean square error, потому что поставив сюда логистическую функцию, эта функция, функция ошибки mean square error не будет конвексной. Поэтому они задизайнили вот эту специальную функцию, которая называется log loss, она третья используется, ну, или там ее еще в статистике называют maximum likelihood function. Да. Ну, это одно и то же, просто я обычно это пытаюсь выводить из принципов конвексности, и функционального анализа. Народ, который из статистики, они это выводят как максимум likelihood estimation. У меня, например, это сложно выводить в MSL, хотя в принципе те же самые. Вот. То есть у нас, условно говоря, во всем машин-лернинге у нас используются 3 функции ошибки. Mean squared, mean absolute error и log loss, которая NLE можно назвать максимум likelihood estimation. Вот и все. И в принципе те же самые. Мы хотим функции ошибки, то есть наша моделька минус наша target table, это функция, чтобы была контекстная, если возможно.
То, по сути, вот это, то, что написано, минимизация вот этого, это просто ordinary least squares.
Да, да. Если мы уберем это самое, то это ordinary squares, просто мы тогда минимизируем сам bias, а вариация у нас может быть очень большой. То есть, условно говоря, мы делаем экстремальный случай, в таком случае least squares минимизирует bias, а вариация максимальная в таком случае. Это то, что еще другими словами называется overfitting. То есть overfitting это когда действительно bias у нас минимальный, а вариация максимальная, поэтому overfitting to the training data. В случае наоборот, когда мы сделаем вот это, у нас будет underfitting. То есть когда мы чисто минимизируем вариацию, и получается мы underfitting, потому что, понятно, тут всех получим zero, коэффициенты, это полный underfitting такой, когда у нас нулевая вариация и очень большой bias. То есть просто все по-разному трохи называют, это тоже там. Некоторые вообще не упоминают underfitting и overfitting, а говорят bias and variance trade-off. Некоторые говорят trade-off between underfitting и overfitting, то есть смотря откуда человек приходит. Да,
overfitting, это же значит, что для train даты у нас беты почти идеально подходят, но когда мы используем вот эти беты для тестовой даты, то оно бессмысленно.
Да, то есть это что у нас означает, что мы эту проблему решили на training data, и у нас error, bias минимальный.
Да.
То есть, но когда придет новые данные, то так как мы overfitнули действительно как можно меньше получили error на training data, то он не обязательно будет хорошим на тестовый data. Поэтому для того, чтобы этот error и немного улучшить, или много улучшить на тестовых данных, мы вводим вот этот же второй термин, и начиная с ними играться, используя трейд-офф, мы получаем
Я раньше наконец. Дошло до
него. Пожалуйста, я даже когда-то взял вот и просто посчитал. Даже на примере в питоне потом. Вот покажу после этого самого, как вот оно такое получается. Вот это вот есть наш total error, который error on the test data. Это вот наша variance, это вот наш bias. Вот это вот наш epsilon, который мы тут используем. Вот этот трейд-офф построен меня epsilon, и вот мы получаем, выбираем эту точку для такого вот epsilon, когда у нас error на тест-сете, он у нас минимальный.
Да, но variance при этом высокий.
Не, variance, при этом это трейд-офф между этими двумя. То есть это у нас bias, это у нас variance. Да, variance будет более высокая, но опять же она будет, может еще больше быть. Не так будет выглядеть.
Я вообще немного не понимаю, почему красная линия сейчас находится между variance и bias. Это что-то, вот это плюс, variance плюс.
Ну тут еще это самое, просто мы обычно игнорируем этот irreducible error, на самом деле. По большому счету, это будет это плюс это, но так как есть irreducible error, я не знаю, куда он тут пошел, или я вообще, наверное, проигнорировал, то они не обязательно масштабы совпадают. Этого самого из-за того, что irreducible error тут проигнорирован в этом флоте. Поэтому да, на самом деле, потому что иначе это должно быть выше, чем вот это должно опуститься ниже, но я там забил с масштабами, честно говоря, потому что иначе должно быть вот так вот, да, действительно. Да. Ну а я просто забил с масштабами, поэтому вот это поднялось туда, но и все так вот. Такая вот зеленая вариация пошла. Что-то надо было там вычистить, наверное.
Спасибо.
Пожалуйста. Что? Лина, будем бежать в хинкальную или не будем?
Еще раз?
Будем бігти в хінкалі чи не будемо? Наші сюди прийшли чи ні?
Я не знаю, мені здається, наші розбіглися просто хто куди. Але треба кудись піти.
Ну, пішли, мабуть, хінкальня все-таки найпростіший варіант, так?
Да? А полі. Там, до речі, зараз Віка замітила.
Ну, ми їм все рівно заважати не будемо. А хоча тобі, може, треба, ти ж менеджер ці програми.
Я вже.
Може тут залишити. Ну, это пристегнутый, конечно. Okay, so heavy stuff.
Pretend we're doing space science.
Okay, so any comments? Is it hard, easy? Should we know about those things?
Interesting. I do have some. I don't have any kind of intuition about what the epsilon sliding part, but.
Yeah, so essentially the epsilon controls this trade-off between the bias and the variance. And what happens really when this is the epsilon, so this is this distance. So when we start with epsilon equal to 0, what we have? Again, two extreme cases. First, we don't put any regularization on our regression. So in that case, we get the traditional ordinal least squares coefficients beta when we don't have any constraints. So our beta 1 is here, beta 2 is there. Another extreme case, we say that the epsilon is equal to 0. So what we get a solution here when beta 1 and beta 2 are equal to 0. So these two extreme cases. In this case, what we have that the variance is equal to what? Two extreme cases. Bias variance trade-off. One here, one here. So what happens, let's start this here. What happens with bias and what happens with variance here?
Here, bias is small.
Bias is small, variance is large. We don't put any constraint on the variance. Of course, it grows as much as we can. And why? So, again, what is variance for at least linear regression? So, what we have? We have the variance of our predictions. So, this is our predictions. So, we are interested in the variance of the target area of the predictions. Of course, we minus y, but y is just a constant. So that's variance of this. So this is our prediction from the linear regression model. This is our value of the target area. So we're interested in measuring, computing variance of that. One thing is, variance of the constant is 0. Yeah. So y is a vector of constant numbers. That's our data. That's our target variable. So there is nothing. So what it really means that we can ignore this when we compute the variance. This term just has the variance of 0. How about this term? So variance of this is this multiplied by this. What is x? X is our features on the test set or the training set. What we release is in the variance of the test set, but we don't have access to a test set during training. So taking into account x for the training set doesn't make any sense because that's not really the coefficients we're interested in x in the features on the test set, which you don't have access. So that's why what people typically do, let's ignore this altogether. This is data which is not really relevant for our variance because we are really interested in the variance on the test set, not on the training set. Let's ignore this x's for the training set. So what we have, variance of the vector, beta in that case, is proportional to the norm of beta. That's what variance means. Just variation of the coefficients itself. That's what they are. That's why we have taken variance term as a norm of beta. Beta is a random variable here, and all this multiplication by these numbers doesn't matter anymore because we are not sure what should be in our data set, in our test set. So that's why we wrote function, the variance function as the norm of the vector beta. That's one. Okay. Now, we put a constraint that the norm of beta less or equal than the epsilon, yeah? And when the epsilon is equal to 0, we have another extreme case. So this set collapses to one point, and the only possible solution, the only feasible solution is here. Beta 1 is equal to 0, beta 2 is equal to 0. So in that case, the variance is the smallest, it's 0, because epsilon is 0, that's our constraint, so all coefficients beta are 0, and the bias is huge. That's another extreme case at this point. What we're interested in is to explore all intermediate cases, this trade-off between bias and the variance. And that's what we start doing, this change, this parameter epsilon from 0 to to some large value until the solution is coinciding with this solution. So because when this grows large, so this solution will be inside the visible set. So that's why all what we do with epsilon, we start from just this visible point and we start expanding, getting at every step, for every epsilon, getting a different vector of betas. And that's what we call the frontier or trade-off between these two objective functions, the bias and the variance. That's pretty much all it means. Now, at every step, what we should do, set epsilon to a number, solve this optimization problem, record beta 1, beta 2. Change epsilon to another number, resolve this optimization problem, record beta 1, beta 2. Everybody with me? Let's just put it in a visualization. So what we would be doing, we would be resolving this problem many times. So here we have epsilon, which we know is variance term. Epsilon is equal to the variance in the optimal solution because this constraint will always hold this equality in the optimal. Everybody with me? The solution will not be inside the visible set because it will be on the boundary of the visible set. Even so, we should put less or equal in the constraint because otherwise the set will not be convex. Remember what we did yesterday? We looked at, yes, if the function f is convex, its level set is convex, but this doesn't hold. This set is not convex, right? Because it just includes the boundary. That's why we would put this as a constraint, but the solution will be always in the equality. Solution will be always at the boundary of this physical set, not inside it. Because if it's inside, you see the value of the objective function will be worse than at the boundary. So that's a trick in optimization. So we have to put this constraint because it's convex instead of this constraint which is non-convex, but the solution that we obtain will be at equality. Yeah? So one interesting thing that that is also useful to so that's why in the optimum epsilon will be equal to normal beta will be equal to epsilon in the optimal solution. Everybody with me? Solution is at the boundary. So epsilon is actually the variance itself. Yeah?
So
now,
so in some ways, like you're testing variances to see if that's what they are. So
yeah, basically what you're doing by changing epsilon, you're changing the variance and you find the best possible bias, the minimal possible bias for that case. So here we have the bias. Square. Here we have the variance. Now what you do, you start from epsilon equal to 0. And you find some huge bias. Let's say it's here. Yeah? You set epsilon is equal to 0, solve this optimization problem with 0. You find some large bias. This bias will be large. After that, you set epsilon is equal to 0.001. You just make it up, you find that's our bias. And you continue computing this, setting different values of epsilon, 0.01, 01, 1, I don't know, just making it up, 10, 100. And you compute your, what we call the efficient frontier. Yeah? This, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, 7 points on the front. So for each point on the frontier, what you get? You get a vector of optimal betas. Yeah? That's what you say. That's a vector beta 0 for epsilon equal to 0. Here is a vector beta 1 of the betas for this value of epsilon, and so on. Beta 3, beta 4, beta 5, beta 6. 6 different vectors of the coefficients of our linear regression. Now, what we want to take each of those and compute the error on the test set. So we computed those on the training set by changing epsilon. Now, in order to know what is the real error, we know the betas, we know the linear regression function, stick it to the test set, compute the real error. And now we will also plot this error in the same scale. Everybody with me? What I will do next? Okay, so let's plot the error over here. Substituted this beta, got this error. Substituted this beta, got this error, this error, this error, this error, this error, this error. So this will look something like okay, this is going to be the error. We also call it bias, but bias on the test set, or the prediction error on the test set. And of course, because this is really our true objective, is the smallest possible error on the test set, on the data that our algorithm has never seen. So this is the smallest possible error on this set. So we'll choose these coefficients beta 3 as our final coefficients of linear regression, of regularizing regression. Everybody with me? For this value of the coefficients, this is our variance. The variance doesn't depend on the coefficient, it's just the norm of beta. Just a number. So this is the variance, which is the same for training set and the test set, because it only depends on betas, and betas are the same for the, we computed those on the training set, they applied to the test set, doesn't change. But of course the error is different, so that was the error on the training set, and it's not the smallest, very smaller error on the training set, but this is the error on the test set. And that's a minimal error on the test set for all possible values of the epsilon, of the variance. And that would be the final goal. That's what we choose. We choose these coefficients beta 3 and we use those. Why? Because if we would just, extreme case, if we just ignore the variance and just choose, we want the smallest possible bias, we'll find the solution. It has the best possible error on the training set. But you see the error on the test set is bad. So, and that's what we would end up if we didn't do any regularization. We would choose these coefficients beta 6 and we'll have bad error on the test set. That's the trick. That's basically what is going on. You see, that's how much additional error we'll need to tolerate if we ignored the regularization, if we ignored the variance term. And that's basically all what is important in this case. And this will be the case for all supervised machine learning algorithms. We spent so much time on this bias trade-off for linear regression because it's the same for logistic regression, it's the same for neural nets, it's the same for decision trees. The formulas to compute the variance and stuff like that will be slightly different, but these visualizations will look the same.
But in the nutshell, we estimate here how this variance of variance will influence our result.
Yeah.
We estimate it based on training dataset, but we don't let's say we don't use train dataset. Train dataset we just check the status, but all these estimations are done on the
training dataset, and to check the status it's a test dataset.
Yeah, so for the train dataset we actually try to predict, so if let's say the variance will be this, then we will get this deviation, big deviation. So, like for example, if we have a variance of 100, then we will get this big error, and we need to.
Yeah, but remember, to compute the variance, you need to compute the coefficients beta, and that's what you do on the training set. You compute the coefficients beta on the training set, and that's what is the variance. In order to know the variance, you need to know the coefficients which you compute on the training set. Yeah, it takes some time to digest all this. It's not easy, but that's what is required. So now, this epsilon in the machine learning terminology is called the hyperparameter of the machine learning algorithm. So betas are the parameters of the algorithms, coefficients. Epsilon is called the hyperparameter. That's a number that we can change in order to reduce the error even more. So if we didn't use that hyperparameter, we'll end up here, and that would be our error. So by what people call tuning the hyperparameter, we were able to reduce the error on the test set by this much. Everybody with me? If you didn't have the bias term, if you didn't introduce this epsilon and the regularization in our optimization problem, we'll end up by only minimizing the bias term, completely ignoring the variance, and our error on the test set will be this, because we'll have this coefficient beta 6. Smallest possible variance, smallest possible bias, huge unrestricted variance.
Yeah, so and this applies also then to ridge regression. So the difference then only between ridge regression and lasso regression is lasso regression gives you the bonus of reducing, eliminating.
Pretty much yes.
So what's ridge regression for?
Again, so with ridge regression, actually, what I'm saying, you can get even smaller error on the test set. So you don't know which error will be smaller on the test set for ridge or for lasso. All what you know that for lasso, typically those are comparable. That's why people, and the lasso has this additional advantage of variable selection. That's why people choose lasso. But there may be some cases when really, let's say, when you do this, regularize this ridge, you get this sort of error for the ridge, and you see your error will be even smaller. Even so, this difference typically is very small. Typically, but doesn't hurt to check.
Okay.
Even so, many people will say, okay, yeah, comparing the sparse beta with some number of zeros, comparing to this smaller reduction in additional reduction in the error, I would probably still choose Lasso coefficients versus ridge coefficients. But that's all very subjective, and it makes sense to verify that. That's why many people would tell that in addition to this hyperparameter epsilon, or lambda, depending on whether we put this in the constraint or an objective function, there is a second hyperparameter in the regression algorithm, whether you choose one regularization or non-two regularization. You can basically try all combinations. Different epsilons for L1, different epsilons for L2, and choose the smallest error. So nothing really prevents you from trying both. So yeah, that's why some people call this choice between L1 regularization and L2 non-regularization the second hyperparameter of the algorithm in addition to lambda or epsilon. And remember, lambda or epsilon are the same, they produce the same frontier, so it doesn't really matter if we solve the optimization problem with lambda in the objective function or with epsilon in the constraints. The same efficient frontier, so it doesn't really matter. Just visualizing it with epsilon, it's more intuitive because we can see it as a constraint. Okay, and another step that we may take, now you say, okay, so I have split my data into the training and the test set, so I have chosen, can I be reshuffled, the training set and the test set? So if I have 1,000 examples, so what I can choose first 200 examples as a test, everything as training, and after taking a reshuffle, I can choose this 200 examples as test, everything else as training. After that, I can choose these 200 examples as test, and everything else as training, and so on. So this technology is called cross-validation. Anybody heard about cross-validation? Because what it allows us to do, so it allows us to use all the data in the test set, one by one. So we use this data in the test set, and we use this data in the test set, and so on and so forth. As a result, what we can do, we can average test errors across each fold, and that's a better estimate of the true error. Yeah, instead of stopping here, okay, this is our error on the test data. We can now compute error on the test set for this test set, after for this test set, after for this test set, after this set, and take the average of the 5 errors. For each epsilon, remember, for each epsilon, we are doing it for each epsilon.
But how do you divide this? Which proportion? Yeah, because it could also influence result.
Typically, so this is called 5-fold cross-validation. Typically, people do either 5 cross-validation or 10-fold cross-validation.
So as we divide on
into 5, yeah, or into 10.
Okay.
And again, if you can afford, because now you need to do 5 times more computations. You need to train your model 5 times on different training data. Yeah. While for regression it's not a problem, it runs really fast. If you want to do the same for the neural net, and the neural net already runs for 1 day, now you need to run it for 5 days. Well,
For regression, we just have key analytical solutions. That's why it's possible.
that's a good question. So for each regression, there is an analytical solution. For lasso, you need to run optimization. This is another interesting trick. So when you minimize quadratic function subject to a quadratic constraint, there is actually an analytic solution. We'll see that. For this, you need to run optimization algorithm, which is okay, as it's relatively fast. Again, even with many features, like hundreds of thousands of features, regression is still fast. Neural nets will not be as fast, so that's why what people typically do for neural nets. Procedure is typically the same. You need to identify what are the hyperparameters for a neural net, and we'll see what are those for neural net. It's not necessarily this regularization parameter. Typically, there is something that is called drop-off rate. That's a hyperparameter for neural nets. And after that, yeah, you may try to do five-fold cross-validation. But typically, because neural nets are running for a long time, what you do, you cannot afford to do it, so you go and read the papers by somebody who has access to a cluster or the GPU farm to run these tests, and they have chosen the best value of the hyperparameter for you. They say, in my tests, I run all these cross-validations, tested with a bunch of data sets, and I figure out that the best value for the hyperparameter is equal to 23. So you just go and use that value that somebody researched for you. Again, be reasonable. So there are people who do research on that. So if you want to know what is the best value of hyperparameter, you can probably, instead of going and running this for 1 day after another 1 day, so instead of running for 5 days, you go and find an answer in the papers. It's probably not be as good as if you run it really for 5 days, but at least you don't need to run for 5 days, you just run for 1 day in that case. 5 times faster. Again, for regression, decision trees you can afford to do cross-validation. Typically for neural nets, you wouldn't have time. Neural nets run for a long time because our error function will not be convex. There will be many local minimums. Now, what you do here, essentially, you do the same as before. You fix epsilon to a number, you run on the training data, after it with the same epsilon, you run on this training data, you run on this training data, and this training data, and you compute 5 errors on the test data for that fixed epsilon, and you compute the average. So this will look the same, but this point will be the error average across 5 folds of the cross-validation. Everybody with me, which gives a more precise estimation of the error. Because now you are using all of your data to compute the error. Otherwise, what you did, you just used 20% of your data to compute the error. So your test set will be just 20% of your data. Now it's 20% plus 20% plus 20% plus 20% plus 20% equal to 100%. You're using all your data to estimate the error on the test set, and that's much more precise. That's the technology is called cross-validation. After that, what you do, you figure out, okay, that's my epsilon, so I fix the value of my epsilon. And now, actually, what I can do, I can use all my data in training, fix this epsilon, and get the true optimal coefficients beta. Why? You can use all the data now, because you already fixed what's the best regularization value of the hyperparameter epsilon. So now you can reuse all your data to compute the final coefficients beta. Everybody with me? You already know what's there. But cross-validation doesn't tell you which values for beta to choose. Because you're here for the fixed value of the parameter, you get one set of betas. Here you get another set of betas. Here you get another set of betas, another set of betas, another set of betas. So cross-validation allows you to estimate the error. It doesn't tell you which coefficients beta to choose. But what you can do after, you find the value of the hyperparameter where the error is smallest, this cross-validation error is smallest. You fix that to a number. You solve this optimization problem with epsilon equal to 0.1, but using all data, all examples during the training phase. Because you don't need to know the error anymore. You already have the estimate of the error. So you can use, all of your data becomes your training data. And you're not losing anything of that because you already know what is your error. Your error was estimated here during the cross-validation. Everybody with me? Again, a bit challenge. Now, yeah, that was a question about the solution of this problems. For each regression, there is a formula. So it has a analytical solution. And all what you do as compared, so when we just run linear regression without regularization, that was the solution. Now with regularization, you need to add plus lambda multiplied by the identity matrix. Okay, of course you never invert, you just solve the system of linear equations, but it has analytical solution. For lasso, we still need to solve this optimization problem. And this is optimization problem that has constraints. So this objective function constraint. We still did discuss how to solve constraint optimization problems, that we'll discuss tomorrow. Yesterday we discussed how to solve unconstrained optimization problems, where you do not have any constraint. This one has constraints, even so it's an easy constraint. It's actually linear. We can convert absolute value with that tick, absolute value function into a linear function by doubling the number of variables. Should we go through that, or that's a bit too hard? How we double the number of variables, how we convert the absolute value function into the piecewise linear function? Okay, if you want, that's a change of variables. If you want, we can discuss that separately. Now putting it as a big picture, what we have done, and that's how typically people plot this bias variance trade-off. What we did. So here is the error, here is model complexity. So what is model complexity? Model complexity is really the epsilon. Why? When the epsilon grows, more and more coefficients beta become non-zero and are included in our model. Everybody with me? Which means the model becomes more and more complex.
Becoming non-zero.
Exactly, becoming non-zero and getting included in the vector beta. So that epsilon is essentially the model complexity. Don't be, for outside of regression there will be some other measure of model complexity, but for now that's epsilon. The number of non-zero coefficients beta is the model complexity. The more non-zero betas we have, the more complex is the model. Everybody with me? Here is our error. Both on the training set, when we are talking about this curve, so this is a bias. That's what I just plotted. This is our plot of the bias.
What does it mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this plot?
In this plot, so this is first value of, this is so beta 0 are the coefficients that we computed by setting epsilon to 0, beta 1 is the vector of coefficients that we computed by setting the epsilon to 0.01 and so on.
So it's a labeling in the set.
It's a labeling of the vector of the coefficients beta of our linear regression that we computed for the fixed value of the epsilon.
Okay, whatever steps we defined, yes?
Yeah, whatever steps. You need to define these discretization steps for the epsilon, of course. And that's
because it's a little bit confusing because beta 0 we use in the function and the regression.
Yeah, by beta 0 I mean this. So beta 0, 0, I know the notation is getting complex. Beta 0, 1 and up to all beta 0 n. We have n features. Yeah, that's a bit more complex.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we cannot avoid this. So things are multidimensional. So this is this line. Model complexity grows. In this case, epsilon grows. So what we have smaller bias, larger variance. We can also plot the variance, which is the opposite. We can plot the variance here. Of course, when epsilon is 0, our variance is very small, the smallest. Yeah.
All zeros. Yeah.
And yeah, in the extreme case it's 0 as well. And after when the epsilon is relaxed, so our variance grows. So we can plot the curve for the variance separately. And this is our prediction error. This is this. The error on the test set. That's what we call the prediction error. And we choose the value of the hyperparameter epsilon corresponding to the minimum of this curve. Somewhere here. That's what we have chosen here. Yeah? The minimum of this curve. So this is the graph that we can compute and plot for our data set. We'll see next. As for interpret, this graph will be the same for all supervised machine learning models. Of course, the meaning of the hyperparameters may be different and so on and so forth, but the trade-off between bias and variance does not change. That's what holds for all supervised machine learning models, as we'll see later. That's why it's so important to understand for the regression, because after that you can project it into decision trees, neural nets, and so on and so forth. That's why we are spending so much time for it, because if you spend right now 2 hours and you understand for regression, after that we spend another 15 minutes and you understand it for decision trees. The same bias variance trade-off. And for the neural nets. So this is the key for understanding, and especially hyperparametric union, and that's what this changing the values of hyperparameter and resolving the optimization problem. That's a standard technique in machine learning. It's called hyperparametric union. We'll look at the example in scikit-learn. Now that's what I plotted for the real data. So this line that I showed here, I plotted for the data set. So this is our blue line, this is our red line. So you don't see much, but the 3D mean is here and it starts growing there. So to convince you that this works in practice, I just plot this for the real data, not showing some fake examples. And after that I plotted that type of picture as well for the data. Data, and that's a point of view as well. So bias variance. By solving this optimization problem and changing the epsilon here. So here is the epsilon and here is the error. Okay. Now.
But again.
Let's.
So we selected this point, yeah? So
we selected this value of the hyperparameter epsilon, which corresponds to the minimum of the prediction error.
And we actually want to use now this beta coefficients from this point.
No, what we can do next, because you fix the value of this epsilon, now it's a number. Yes. It's 0.1, yeah? What you can do, you can take now all your data, all your examples, not only the training set, but all examples, resolve this by substituting all data there. This is now a number, and you compute the final coefficients beta. You already fixed the value of the hyperparameter epsilon.
Some kind of adjustment of beta based on...
Exactly. Because what this tells you, especially when you do cross correlation, tells you for which value of the hyperparameter epsilon you achieve the smallest error on the test set. But it doesn't tell you which coefficients beta to choose, because you get one set of beta coefficients for this, another set for this, because you are using different training data, yeah? Here. So you have 5 different vectors beta corresponding to each of the cross-validation form. So which one of the 5 you should choose? No ideas. So but what you can do, you know that the best value of hyperparameter epsilon now is 0.5. That's what you computed because it corresponds to the minimum average error on the test set. And now with fixing this, you can use all examples as your training set with fixed epsilon and compute the final values of the vector beta. And that's what you use as your parameters, your coefficients in your linear regression model. Again, it's some time to adjust. That's
I'm confusing because actually you can some kind of make cheating, yeah. Sharpening around testing.
We can call it cheating. We can call it cheating. But what you are trying really to do, you are trying to use all the data you have, not only for training your model, but also for testing. Otherwise, you lose some information. So if you just said, okay, I do one form cross-validation, I just use 800 examples for training and 200 examples for testing, you are basically using only 20% of your data for testing. You're losing 80% of your data which is not used for testing. You lose some information which is still inside the data.
We lose, but on the other hand, we, let's say, can really... Okay, yeah, I think intuitively, by intuition, I understand that just necessary.
So it's kind of like a way of like extracting that more information without spoiling the capability of the...
Pretty much. Okay. You have limited data. So you basically, typically, that's a number of examples, 1,000 that you're able to collect. That's it. You cannot afford to collect more because either it's too costly or it's impossible. But you are trying to use all data that you collected by paying money or spending time, and you don't want to lose any information that already contained in that data.
But and then doing it this way preserves the validity of later on when you test your full thing against it.
Yeah. Again, if you still
Not overfitting, right?
yeah, you overfit because you already avoided overfitting by fixing the hyperparameter style, by restricting your variance to be lesser than 0.5.
So it's like in the anecdote when monkey wants to be beautiful and smart, yeah? So
Pretty much. That's what it is. If you really have data and you spend hard time collecting that data, storing that data, cleaning that data, why to lose that to the limitations of the algorithmic implementation that you did?
Okay, it's really trade-off, yeah. To get use mostly from the data, but also, let's say, to make sure to be, let's say, more reliable that for new data, you will not get big deviations, yeah. So it's some kind of security, yeah, also.
Yeah. Okay, now let's switch to logistic regression, and we'll see.
Epsilon, it is not vector. It is.
No, it's a number. Yeah, epsilon is a number. We call it parameter, hyperparameter. Sorry, hyperparameter. Yeah. So, and we'll probably still look at the code for the regularized regression, but now let's do what we have done for linear regression. Let's do for logistic regression. Even so, the framework is really the same. Almost the same. So only what changes now, your target variable, y, is no longer continuously many. It's discrete. In the simplest case, binary. It can take value 0, 1. That's the only difference. When your target variable y is binary, things change. And we'll see why. So you still have the same data set. You have your examples, you have your target variable, you have your features in the vector x, you have m examples. You still have features, you still have some parameters that you need to feed. You still define your hypothesis function. We'll see why and how. The only difference I said, now your variable y is discrete. It can only take value 0 or 1. No longer continuous. Everybody likes to show it on this iris data set because it's quite intuitive what are the features for that. And that's how we classify the iris flower into two classes, setosa plus A, versicolor plus B. Y equal to 1 setosa, y equal to 0 setosa, y equal to 1 versicolor.
What's the difference?
We will see. We will see on the next slide. So, the two-class classification problem is very typical everywhere and can be extended to multi-class classification problem. So, for instance, spam, non-spam message. That's how you classify spam. Cat, no cat on the image, and so on and so forth. It's basically two types of typical problems in machine learning: regression, when the target variable is continuous, and classification, when the target variable is discrete. In the simplest case, binary 0, 1. Everybody with me? And of course, those require different algorithms. Again, historically, negative class is denoted as class 0. For instance, spam, positive class is denoted as class 1. Even so, in some cases, you don't know what is negative, what is positive, like versicolor, suppose in that case it's arbitrary 0, 1. Now, this iris dataset, Fisher's iris dataset. So what you have 2, 3, or actually have 4 different classes of the iris flower. In the simplest case, 2, setosa and versicolor, and you have 4 features. So feature 1 is sepal length. Feature 2 is sepal width. Well, this is width, this is length. Testing pechinko, everybody remember from the Yeah, that's Ukrainian analogy of petal and sepal. So feature XP is petal length, or petal length, and feature X4 is petal width. So this is a physical dimension of the flower measured in centimeters. That's why it's so understandable. That's why everybody uses that as an example, because you intuitively know what are the features. So here is the sepal width, x2, feature x2 measured in centimeters. Here is the sepal length, feature x1 measured in centimeters, and so on. And the target variable is class A setosa, class B versicolor. The next step would be, if we have only 2 classes, if we have only two features, for instance, these two, we can actually plot in two-dimensional space. And after these colors, we can show that this is class A, this is class B, and what we will try to do later on, we'll try to figure out, can we separate those two classes to do a perfect classification. With some curve which is called the decision boundary. That will come next. But it's always good to look at the data when you have it, and in this case it makes sense to plot it in the space of the features. Of course, you can only plot in the space of up to 3 features. If you have more, you cannot plot. But even plotting some selected features out of many, you have to give you some idea whether your data, your classes may be separable or not. And that's important. Now, what's the difference between having the continuous target variable and having the discrete target variable? So we use linear regression when our target variable is continuous. We will use logistic regression when our target variable is discrete. So, in linear regression, that was our model, and that's a line. In logistic regression, what we know, one thing is, our class can be only 0, 1. Values below 0, above 1 do not make much sense. That's why one thing that we'll probably need to think about, can we find a function that can only take values between 0 and 1? Because if you use linear regression, and that's the first possibility, you can use linear regression for classification. The answer is yes, but there are some limitations. And one limitation for linear regression, you may get values smaller than 0 and larger than 1. Yeah? How do you interpret those? Okay, I may say everything is larger than 1 is 1, everything is smaller than 0 is 0. That's a possibility, but we would like to find another function, linear function, that has the range between 0 and 1. And one such possibility is the logistic function, which we'll see. But before that, let's look what can go wrong when you use linear regression for classification. So, let's say that you have your data, and this is the cancer data, so you have the data about 8 examples of the patients. Your only feature is the tumor size. So this is the size of the tumor, and this is the class whether the tumor is malignant or not. So this is dangerous tumor, and this is healthy tumor.
Where is tumor?
Tumor, it's medical application where people try. Even so, that's why people use this example, because you need to, in some cases, you need to look at the clinical applications, and that makes a difference, and we'll see why. So, what happens here? Let's say you have 4 examples for the healthy tumor. This is the size of the tumor, and it's healthy, class 0. You have another 4 examples for the class 1, which is dangerous tumor, and of course that tumor is large, so has large tumor size. Now, what you can do? You can make examples. You have your target value 0s, 1s. You can just pick a linear regression line. Nothing prevents us from doing that. It will look something like this. So this is the hypothesis function for our linear regression. And it looks reasonable. After that, what you do, you set a threshold, typically in the middle, 0.5, 50%. Everything which is above here, which means on this side, will be classified as dangerous, class 1. Everything which is below 0.5, which means on this side, for this will be classified as class 0. Nothing more than that. Now, what happens if you have really an extreme case? Really dangerous tumor with large size, which we didn't call an outlier. But it's a valid example. Now, you refit your linear regression, and you will get a line like that. So what happens now? Now your is a threshold of 0.5, you are here, and what you see, we are going to misclassify these 3 points, because you predict class 0. Well, those are class 1. So what it means, first lesson, linear regression model can be used for classification, but it's very sensitive to outliers. Everybody with me? If you use it, you need to take that into account. Second, if you use linear regression, that's what I said. So linear regression can return the values below 0 and bigger than 1. You need to do something with those. Our hypothesis function is not restricted to be between 0 and 1, because that's a lie. Can be between 0 smaller than 1. Another interesting lesson is this threshold of 0.5. That's what we can move. It's not written in stone. We can set another threshold instead of 50%. So in this case, because it's a critical application in medicine, does it make sense to increase the threshold from 0.5 or to decrease it?
Both not good.
Change it.
So once again, we now can start thinking, what's more dangerous?
It depends on what the treatment is.
Yeah, that's why let's start thinking about those, and people typically call those false positives, false negatives. So what is more dangerous? If we miss a person who has a tumor, or if we tell to the person who doesn't have tumor that he or she has a tumor. So what is a more dangerous situation in practice? To miss. Because if it detect that, okay, somebody who doesn't have a tumor is really has a tumor, we can send the person for additional tests, and eventually it will be figured out that there is no tumor. So it's not a dangerous case. But really, the dangerous case is if we really miss a person who, if you tell the person who has a tumor that there is no tumor. That's a dangerous situation. So, in order to decrease the chance of doing that, so what we should do with the threshold? Decrease or increase? Okay, so if we decrease, so what happens? We are somewhere here. 0.3 is somewhere here, so we will be somewhere here, yes. That's what we now do. We can correct some of the deficiencies of the model by decreasing the threshold, in this case. Am I correct? Are you decreasing?
That's right.
Yes. Decrease and
Yeah.
all points.
Yeah. Okay. Something to again about. So we have another thing to choose. What is our threshold for classifying class 1 and class 0? Now let's come to the next step. So in the case of linear regression, that was our hypothesis function. But what we really want to do in the classification, we only want to predict class 0 or class 1. So what we want our hypothesis function to look like this. Everything which is below 0 predict class 0, everything which is above 0 predict class 1. What do you think? Is it a good function to work with?
No, because it's not differentiable. Not
Exactly. We see it immediately, we see a discontinuous function. So that's why when we stick this hypothesis function to our error function, the error function will also be discontinuous.
and not converts.
Yeah, because when you take another function of a discontinuous function, that function is also going to be discontinuous. So we immediately, by using this hypothesis function, we will immediately know that our error function will not look nice. It will be also discontinuous. Violate all properties, so automatically will be not convex, automatically will not be differential. Not a good idea. So now, can we replace this function by a function that looks approximately like this, but is continuous and everywhere differential? And the answer is yes, and one of the candidate functions is the logistic function. So the formula for logistic function is 1 divided by 1 plus the exponent to the power minus z, and that's how it looks like. So you see it has approximately a shape like this, but it's continuous and everywhere differentiable. Everybody with me? Or it looks similar to this. So, and that's what people propose to do. For logistic regression, instead of using the hypothesis function, a linear function as we do in linear regression, for logistic regression, we take a logistic function of this linear function. And that becomes our new hypothesis function. So our hypothesis function will look like logistic taken of the linear, so 1 divided by 1 plus the exponent to the power minus theta transpose multiplied by x. So this is our new hypothesis function for logistic regression, when our target variable y is discrete. Everybody with me?
Is it convex? Because if we take two dots on the...
You see, we don't want this to be convex, we want the error function to be convex, and we still didn't write down the error function. We don't want hypothesis function to be convex, we want the error function to be convex. But what we know, because the error function depends on the hypothesis function, if a hypothesis function is discontinuous, the error function will be automatically discontinuous, non-convex, and...
how we will how we will use less square root method if this function is not convex?
That's what we will come to. So we still don't know whether our error function will be convex or not, but at least for now we know that we can make our function differentiable and continuous, the error function. We still don't know if we can make it convex. All what we fixed so far, we removed the discontinuity, because for this our error function automatically will be discontinuous, which means non-differentiable, non-convex. And it's discontinuous automatically not convex. So by this function now we know that with appropriate design our error function will be at least continuous and convex, and we'll need to continuous and differentiable, we'll need to check convexity still. Of course, the next step, of course, as before, we need to fit the parameter theta into this. We need to compute the unknown parameters, coefficients, in this case of logistic regression. The same as before as we did for linear regression. We need to write down the error function, we need to minimize the error function, and so on. But before we do that, let's get some additional intuition about logistic regression before we go and compute the coefficients theta. Okay, so back to our example of the tumor. So let's say we have only one feature, x1, which is the tumor size. Feature x0 we fixed to 1 as before. And let's say that hypothesis function returns us value of 0.7. We already fitted the coefficients somehow, and the hypothesis function returns 0.7. So basically what that means. So 0.7 means that we should tell the patient that he or she has 70% chance of tumor being malignant, being dangerous. That's what it means. And after that, based on our threshold, if our threshold was 0.5, 0.7 is above 0.5, we assign it class 1. But if our threshold was 0.8, 0.7 is below 0.8, we assign it class 0. Everybody, it all depends on the threshold. So hypothesis function for logistic regression returns the probability of belonging to class 1. It doesn't return as the class. It returns the probability of belonging to class 1. And after, depending on our threshold that we selected, we classify it to class 1 or class 0. Everybody with me, that's the difference. So the number returned by logistic regression is not class 0,1, it's the probability of belonging to class 1. In this case, 70% of probability of belonging to class 1. One important distinction.
It's threshold or it's not threshold? I didn't get it.
No, this is the hypothesis function. After we need to compare this to a threshold, and if it's above the threshold, class 1. If it's below the threshold, class 0. This number. So if the threshold is 0.5,
what does it mean class 1, class 0?
Well, class 1 is the malignant tumor, class 0 is the healthy tumor.
True, false.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, if we have chosen a threshold of 50%, 0.7 is about 50%, so class 1. If we've chosen a threshold of 0.8, 0.7 is below 0.8, class 0. Depends on the threshold that we have selected previously. And that's our personal choice of the threshold, depending on the application. We said that for these critical type of applications, it probably makes sense to lower the threshold from 0.5 to a smaller number.
So
yeah?
Threshold is also probability, yeah? So
yeah, threshold B basically is a probability threshold. Typically 50-50. Above 50% plus 1. Below 50% probability plus 0. Because remember, interpretation of this function, probability of belonging to class 1. If the threshold is default 0.5, probability is bigger than 0.5, probability belonging to class 1 is bigger than 50%, classified as class 1. That's the meaning of that threshold function returned by logistic regression. Next, now we can, how we basically interpret our hypothesis function. So hypothesis function is logistic function of the linear function, and we interpret probability of belonging to class 1 given the values of our features, given the values or the optimal values of the parameters. So and of course, because those are mutually exclusive, probability of belonging to class 0 plus probability of belonging to class 1 is equal to 1. Nothing more than that. Now, suppose that we predict class y equal to 1 if the hypothesis function is greater than our default threshold of 50%. So what does it mean when our logistic function returns a number greater than 0.5? So this is the logistic function. So greater than 0.5 is here. So 0. 0.5 greater than 0.5, in that case, z is positive. So what it means that theta transform over x is greater than 0. So, in the opposite case, we predict plus 0 if the hypothesis function return a number smaller than 0.5. Smaller than 0.5 is here, the argument of the function is smaller than 0, so theta transpose x is smaller than 0. So that's what it means, predict plus 1, when this linear function is greater or equal to 0, and this linear function is less than 0. And this function is called decision boundary. So what we do right now, let's visualize this decision boundary. So what we have? We have our example of logistic regression, and let's say that we somehow computed the parameters. We still didn't discuss how to compute those, but let's say we computed the optimal parameters. So in this case, we have two features, x1 and x2, and the optimal parameters are theta 0 is minus 3, theta 1, 1, and theta 2 is equal to 1. So we substitute those here, and what that means, we said that we predict plus 1 if theta transpose x is greater than 0. So what is theta transpose x? In our case, minus 3 multiplied by 1 plus 1 multiplied by x1 plus 1 multiplied by x2. So if this inequality holds, minus 3 plus x1 plus x2 greater than 0, we predict plus 1. If the opposite holds, less than 0, we predict plus 0. Now let's visualize this here. So this is our data set, x1, x2. Now let's plot this line, minus 3 plus x1 plus x2 equal to 0. This is this line. We just call the decision boundary. So we predict plus 1 if the point is above this line. So if the point is here, we predict plus 1. If the point is below this line, we predict plus 0. And this line, theta transpose x, is called the decision boundary. Everybody agree that separates two classes. Yeah, makes sense? Now, let's think about probabilities. So we said that, hypothesis function returns us the probability of belonging to class 1. So if we, what do you think is the probability of belonging to class 1 to this point?
55%.
Like somewhere near.
It's below the line. It's not above the line.
45%.
Yeah, something like 45%, because it's close to the boundary, but still below the boundary. So its probability belonging to class 1 is around 45%. And this probability belonging to class 0 is 55%, that's why it's class 0. Yeah, it's below the line. Now how about this point? What's approximately its probability of belonging to class 1? What hypothesis function returns?
5%.
Something like 10%, yeah? Probability of belonging to this class 1 is 10%. Probability of belonging to class 0 is 90% because it's far from decision boundary. Here it's the opposite. So this probability is probably around 60-70% of belonging to class 1. This is probably 90% of belonging to class 1. Everybody with me how we interpret the distance to the decision boundary. The further we from the decision boundary in this direction, the higher is the probability of belonging to class 1. The further we are in this direction, the lower is the probability of belonging to class 1, and the opposite is higher probability of belonging to class 0.
How did you get this decision boundary 3?
Oh, that's what we'll discuss next, how we compute the optimal values of the coefficients theta. We did it for linear regression by minimizing the error function. We'll need to do the same for logistic regression, but we'll do it next. Now we're just interpreting the mean. Let's take another example. And in this case, as we said, we can do a non-linear transformation of the existing features. For instance, x1 squared, we just call it feature x3, x2 squared, we call it feature x4. The same as we did for linear regression. So, what that actually means, that our decision boundaries in the space of the variables x1 and x2 can be non-linear. So, let's look at this. So, we have feature 0, 1, 2, feature 3, and feature 4. Feature 3 happens to be x1 squared, feature 4 happens to be x2 squared. Let's say that we computed the optimal values of this parameter theta. And what we have, we predict plus 1 if minus 1 plus 0 multiplied by x1 plus 0 multiplied by x2 plus 1 multiplied by x1 squared plus 1 multiplied by x2 squared is greater than 0. So if this holds, we predict plus 1. If the opposite holds, less, we predict plus 0. Now let's plot this boundary. Minus 1 plus x1 squared plus x2 squared is equal to 0. What is that? That's a circle, yeah? Everybody agrees? x1 squared plus x2 squared equal to 1.
Yeah.
That's a circle. Now, how do we interpret it? So if greater than 0, which means outside of the circle, we predict plus 1. and we interpret the probability in the same way. So probably for this point, the probability is, actually I think I computed it on the latest slide, but the probability will be something like 60, 70%. For this it will be 80% or something like that. The further from the boundary in this direction, greater than 0, the higher is the probability of belonging to class 1, and the opposite inside. So this is probably has a probability of 20% belonging to class 1, and this has probability of, I don't know, 20% belonging to class 1, and so on. So the lesson is, because we allow to introduce new features by feature engineering, using nonlinear transformations of the original features, we can have non-linear decision boundaries in the space of the original features, x1 and x2. Because we allow to introduce new features where we are going to square or take the non-linear transformations of the original features. So decision boundary is not necessarily a line in the space of the original features. Okay? Great. Oh, actually, that's what the added slides that allow us to really see what are the probabilities. So, decision boundary for this case is this, minus 3 plus x1 plus x2 equal to 0. So this is the hypothesis function for that case, where we substitute it here. Now, let's look at this point. Let's point with values of the features x1 is equal to 0.4 and x2 is equal to 0.4, yeah? Now let's substitute 0.4 and 0.4 instead of x1 and x2 over here. So we get the probability of equal to 10%, as expected. For this point, 10% probability of belonging to class 1. How we do this? So what we do? We computed this minus 3 plus x1 plus x2 is minus 2.2, which is here. Now we need to compute the logistic function of that value. So logistic function of that value is 0.1. That's all what we do. We take the logistic function of this number, yeah, of this linear function. This linear function is theta transpose multiplied by x, and after that we take the logistic function out of that linear function. So this linear function is equal to minus 2.2, which is here. After that we take, that's how logistic function looks like, we take logistic function of minus 2.2 and we get 0.1. That's all what we are doing. Then we know the coefficients. Yeah, 0.1. Now, let's take this point. x1 is equal to 2, x2 is equal to 3.6. Yeah. Substitute 2 and 3.6 in here. This is 2.6. So logistic function of 2.6 is 0.93. So this point has a probability of 93% belonging to class 1. That's all. Simple geometry, like this. Just a Boolean function values, nothing more than that. Now let's do the same for the second example when we had 4 features. Okay, decision boundary has the equation x1 squared plus x2 squared is equal to 1. Now let's say this point, which has x1 is equal to 0.3, x2 is equal to 0. Substitute here 0.3 squared plus 0 squared. We get minus 0.91. So logistic function of that is 0.3. So this point has a probability of 30% belonging to class 1. And another point that we can take, let's take this point, which has the coordinates x1 is equal to 1.2, x2 is equal to 1.3. Substitute here, we get 2.1, logistic function of 2.1 is equal to 0.9. So this point has a 90% probability of belonging to class 1. Okay, that's interpretation. Now what remains, as we did before, now we need to compute those coefficients, those unknown parameters of logistic regression, as the same as we did for linear regression. For that, we need to formulate a class function, the error function, as we did before. Yeah, and what is the error function? Is the function that measures how far is the predictions coming from our hypothesis function and the true values of the target variable. Now let's use our favorite mean squared error function as the cost function. So what we need to do, now we need to substitute our hypothesis function into here and check if this function is convex. So what we need to put this 1 divided by 1 plus the epsilon to the power minus theta transpose x into here. And we need to check if that function is convex or not. So let's write that function. And now for those of you who are interested, you can plot that function in Python and see what's going on. So what we need, we want to check the convexity of the function. Let's do it even simpler, function of 1 there. Yeah, function of 1 plus 1 epsilon minus theta transpose x minus epsilon squared. And again, if you are curious, you can always take an example with one feature, put any coefficient, plot this function and see whether it's convex or not. The difference is, to verify that when this function was linear function, or quadratic function of linear function is convex. Yeah? How do you think quadratic function of the logistic function? Is it convex or not? And you can check that by plotting into dimensions.
Is it always necessary to plot? Maybe there is some function like is
Or you can, as always, you can try to compute the Hessian and see whether the Hessian is positive, negative. Or we need to verify convexity of the error function.
There is no some built-in function, just I want to check this convex or not convex in Python.
Basically, I don't know about such libraries because you would need to enable automatic differentiation for that. So you need to have a package that is automatically able to compute the derivatives symbolically for the given function. And that's, yeah, there are such packages.
Yeah, Python can work with this symbolic.
Of course, you can symbolically differentiate that function to compute its second derivative, the Hessian, then check whether that Hessian is positive, definitely positive, so maybe.
Sorry, in our case it will look, because it's square, it will look not like this, but like this. So it is convex.
It is not.
It is not?
It is not. The problem is really that this function will not be convex. The mean square error function of the logistic function is not convex. What? What function that we use for regression is now non-convex because this nonlinear function, logistic function substituted inside this quadratic function will bring non-convexity. That's a problem. That's a problem. Now what we did, if we just use our error function, our cost function as a mean square error, it's not convex for the hypothesis function being logistic function. It was convex for hypothesis function being linear function. But now our hypothesis function is no longer linear, it's logistic function. So we need to do something about that. Otherwise, our error function will be non-convex. And when we minimize it, we'll need to deal with non-convexity. We may end up in local minimas. That's it. So, of course, we are not the first people who noticed that. That was noticed a long time ago, more than 50 years ago. And people tried to design another cost function that still represents the error, but is convex. And that's what we'll do. So now we need to design another function that still represents the error between our model and target variable, but is convex. And this function is called the log loss function. That's the third type of the error function that is heavily used in data science. So mean squared error, mean absolute error, and the log loss. So this function, this cost function will look like this. Minus the logarithm of our hypothesis function, of our logistic function if y is equal to 1, minus logarithm 1 minus hypothesis function if y is equal to 0. Now we need to plot this and check that first it represents the error, second that it is convex, the same for this one. Now let's plot. So we plot this function minus the logarithm of the logistic function, so it will look like this for y equal to 1. So first what we want to check that it really represents the error. How do we do that? Okay, this is for y equal to 1. So if the hypothesis function is return 1, then cost should be 0 because the true class is 1. So let's check. Okay, hypothesis function return 1. The cost is 0, yes. When there is no error, the cost is 0. Everybody with me? So the true class is 1, hypothesis function return us 1. So that's correct. So the cost should be 0. So I call this function, which is here 1, we return as cost of 0, that really represents an error. When there is no error, error is 0. Now in the opposite case, if the true class is 1, but the hypothesis function returns as 0, then the cost should be a large number to go to infinity. So let's substitute 0 here. We see that, yeah, that goes to infinity asymptotically. So this function is really represent the error. When there is no error, it returns 0. When there is an error, it returns a large number, large positive number. Everybody with me that it represents the error? Now we need to check its convexity. You can either prove it or just visually see that this is convex. Yeah? The graph of the function is below the line connecting the 2 points of the graph. Now let's check the second case. Y is equal to 0, and let's check this function. So this is a plot of that function. The true class is y equal to 0. So if the hypothesis function returns 0, and the true class is 0, the cost should be 0. Hypothesis function returns 0, the cost is 0. That's correct. So if the hypothesis function returns 1, and of course the true class is 0, the cost should go to positive infinity. So return as 1, the cost really go to positive infinity. Yeah, that function represents the error, and it's also convex, as you see. So what's remaining is just to put these two functions into one cost function, and that's how people do it. So they combine these two cases into one big function, minus y multiplied by the logarithm of the logistic function, minus 1 minus 1 by logarithm of y, 1 minus the logistic function. Let's check that it's really the case. So if y is equal to 1, we substitute 1 here, we get minus the logarithm of this, and this disappears, 1 minus 1 is 0. So we get back to that. If y is equal to 0, let's substitute 0 here, this term disappears, and here we get minus the log of this minus this, which coincides with this. So this is our new cost function, which represents the error and this convexity. And that's the third type of the cost function, which is known as the log loss. Why people use it? Represent the error and this convexity. Why people don't use typically mean squared error? Non-convex. For logistic hypothesis function. Again, if you, in statistics, if anybody mentioned the maximum likelihood estimation, the same idea can be derived from maximum likelihood principle in statistics. We derived it from the point of view of data science, convexity, and all those things, but the same function can be derived from the maximum likelihood principle in statistics. So if Tatiana or Manjas or Tatiana Marinich talked about statistics that's mentioning maximum likelihood, that derivation can be done there. So now, this is our cost function that has this form that we just designed. This is our cost function and we want to minimize it. So now, as you see, this is a non-linear function. It has logarithms inside it. So for that, yeah, we have our three favorite algorithms as before: gradient descent, Newton, quasi-Newton. For each of those, we require to compute the derivatives of this function. And here is actually the derivative of this function, if you want to verify that this is really the case. So we know how to compute the derivative. That's just, we need to deal with logarithms and exponents, but that's possible. And after that, because we know the gradient, we can apply one of our favorite algorithms to minimize that function. It's convex, we know that we get unique global minimum. And that's it. That's pretty much all about logistic regression, except that, well, we'll need to take care of this, bias variance trade-off. But it's no different than in the previous case. So what we will need to do, this is our bias function. We'll need to add the second function, the norm of the coefficients theta, and minimize the multi-objective optimization problem. The difficult thing is, now this first bias function is no longer quadratic, it's non-linear because of logarithms and exponents. But it's convex. Nice. So we still have a convex optimization problem. Another note about the logistic regression. So what happens if we have more than two classes? Not only class 0 and 1, maybe have 3 classes or 4 classes. Fortunately for us, it's very easy. For logistic regression, what you do, if you have class, let's call it 1, 2, 3, or just ABC. what you do? There is an algorithm called 1 versus all. So you denote this as class 0, you denote everything else as class 1. You run your logistic regression. And after that you do this. This is class 0, this is class 1. You run the second logistic regression. You get your probabilities from each of the regressions. You get probability of class A, probability of class B, and class C. And you choose the class which is the most probable. How we do it? Okay, so an example. So let's say that the right first logistic regression, we got the probability of class A being 0.1 and the probability of class B consequently class 1 0.9. After we run the second, we got the probability of the class 0 being equal to 0.4 and the probability of class 1 is being equal to 0.6. Now, what is the probability of class A, B, and C? A was given immediately at 0.1. That was class 0 here, yeah? Class C is given immediately, 0.6. What is B? 1 minus 0.6 minus 0.1 is what? 0.3, if I'm not mistaken, yeah? So we have, and here is 0.6. So which class we would predict? A, B, or C? Is this probability of class A, this probability of class B, this probability of class C? Of course C, that's the highest probability. That's all what we do for multi-class classification. We need to run 2 logistic regressions, 2 binary classification problems, and after that from those, infer the probabilities of all classes. 2 probabilities we given automatically. In the first logistic regression, they are given automatical probability of class 1 because it's inside this class A, because it's inside this class 0. In the second logistic regression, we automatically give a probability of class C because it inside the class 1 there. Easy. That's called 1 versus all algorithm. Also implemented. So, logistic regression can be applied to multi-class classification problems when we have whatever 3 types of iris flower, or we have email tagging into 4 classes: work, friends, family, and hobby. That's what Gmail is doing.
What if we have 4, and then we will do how many guys?
We have 3 for logistic regression. So, the number of regressions we need to run is number of classes minus 1.
And minus 1.
Yeah, here we have 3 classes, 2 logistic regressions, 4 classes, 3 logistic regressions, and so on. That's why it's called 1 versus all. So basically, 1 versus all, 1 versus all. That's all. We just reshuffle.
Maybe 1 versus rest.
We can call 1 versus rest and stuff like that. It's not a big deal. Okay, coming back to the regularization, you can actually do this regularization in Python using the scikit-learn package. Let's show that. That's what I skipped there. This slide. So, now, it's all implemented, regularized regression is implemented in scikit-learn for L1 regularized linear regression. That's a formulation implemented in Python in the scikit-learn package. So here you have your bias, which we call the cost function. Here you have the hyperparameter, we call it lambda, we call it alpha of the first norm of the coefficients. So this is, again, this is mean squared loss function that we have. And for the logistic regression, that's the formulation. They call the hyperparameter C instead of lambda, but it doesn't really matter. And this is, in that case, is a log loss function. So MS, mean squared error loss function for linear regression, log loss function because it's convex for logistic regression. That's a hyperparameter. They just call it C and alpha. We called it lambda. That's again. So here is just one-to-one projection. So in the annotation, in our notation, what is lambda is alpha in the second notation multiplied by m, number of examples. And for this regression, so lambda is 1 divided by c in the scikit-learn notation. That's all. So we can run this regularized regression both for linear regression, logistic regression in Python, and now we understand what's going on. How we compute this efficient frontier, how we select the best possible value of the hyperparameter, and how we use that. And let's...
I have one question.
Yes.
Why do you use Greek letters, or why mathematicians use Greek? Lambda, theta.
That's how it's all started. In ancient Greece. No, not only there, in Arabic countries as well, but As I understand, the Europeans adopted the Greek letters because of ancient Greeks. And we adopted the Arabic numbers because that was the second major hub for mathematics in the ancient times. Somehow Romans were not that much efficient in designing either notation or the numbers. Those were difficult to use, the Roman numbers.
They just exploited.
They just exploited, yeah, pretty much. We use Arabic numbers in many cases in ancient Rome, as I know, and we use the Greek notations. So that's what it is. So, of course, there are some other advantages of the ancient Rome. Ancient Rome brought us the legal system, the university system, and many other interesting things, but not the mathematics.
And maybe you know how Chinese learn these things. Also with Greek letters and.
Yeah, they use the same formulas pretty much. They didn't invent their own alphabet for mathematics. They don't use their symbols for mathematics, as I know. So pretty much. Now this Western notation for mathematics is well known. So even many people use decimal point because that's more common than the decimal comma. Okay, so break, yes. We went longer, but we at least finished the slides for logistic regression, and now we'll, after we look at it, get an old.
What's the third kind of error function? Log loss and mean square error.
Mean absolute error. When we use absolute value function instead of the square function.
То есть с вами получается господи, классификация, да, регрессии. Нет разных курсов, да, как там было лассо.
Есть то же самое.
То же самое,
Да,
да?
потому что функция variance не меняется. То же самое, да. Это норма коэффициента пита, поэтому все то же самое. И так же самое делается, так же самое интерпретируется, просто меняется функция bias, которая теперь у нас log loss, instead of mean squared error. That's all. So, видите, вот тут все то же самое, вот тут написано, просто функция регрессии, наша cost function, наша bias function это log loss, instead of mean squared error в linear regression. Otherwise it's the same. This optimization problem, yeah. Now we have a convex nonlinear function. That's a bit more difficult optimization problem, but otherwise nothing else changes. The same interpretation. Even so, to be precise, this computation of the variance is an approximation, because variance for logistic function is not as easy as the variance for linear function. So if you want to compute the variance exactly, for logistic function, you need to derive the variance. You want to compute the variance of this, of 1 plus 1 minus y, but that's constant, so disappears. What we do, instead of computing this, we still pretty much take the approximation, and this is the variance. Even so, that's pretty much true exactly for linear function, but not true exactly for nonlinear function. But people still use it as an approximation of the variance. Because if you want to derive variance of this function, it will be some nonlinear function. Everything is getting much more complex, and we want this to be reasonable. We want to still use to the convex function, even so it's now approximation of the variance. It's not the exact variance we use. To compute the variance of this random variable theta, you need to take into account the logistic function. Nobody is really doing that, it's just too complex. They still use the same variance function as for linear regression. So that's why we have this term here for logistic regression, the same variance function as it was for linear regression. Okay, example of logistic regression. Let's put it all together, what we know, and in a full cycle. So this example of the classification problem, report a bunch of things, and this is from the Kaggle competition about inheritance. Everybody likes it because it allows you to show a full cycle of a data science project.
Which lecture is it?
It's still lecture 6. That's logistic regression.
Okay.
Jupyter notebook. Yeah, no problem. So what we have here? We have the Titanic data set. We split that into the training and test data. So that training data is a Titanic train, test data is Titanic test. And after that we have a description of the data and we can look at the data. So what we have here in our data set? We have our target variable will be whether the passenger survived or didn't survive in Titanic crash. So 0 means didn't survive, 1 survived.
In Titanic crash.
Yeah. That's actually. Yeah, that's a classification problem. Classify people who survived or didn't survive the Titanic crash. So our target variable y is binary.
So how do we formulate the problem?
Well, that's where we are going. That's an example of that problem. And why it's so interesting, because there was a competition on the Kaggle website where really they gave this data set about these 1,000-something Titanic passengers. So we have around 1,000 examples, 1,000 people who were Titanic. And pretty much that's all features that we can use. So there is a passenger ID, there is a class in which the passenger traveled, third class, first class, class coyote. So there is a name, sex, male, female, age, number of siblings, I forgot what is that, we'll see, ticket number, fare that they paid, the amount of they paid, the cabin, and in which city they embarked. So that's pretty much all the columns that we have in our data set, and now we need to do feature engineering based on this data. So we'll do a full cycle, and that's why this Jupyter notebook I advise you to review on your own as well. When we start, we do first exploratory analysis. We look at statistical summaries. We use the describe command from pandas to really look at each column of the data. And we see that, we're looking at the training data. So we have 891 training examples. But what we see, for some columns there is missing data. For the age, we only have 714 people for which we have the age. For the rest, another 100-something people we don't have the age. And so on. So always useful to look at the statistical summaries. Also for the test data, that's what we have for the test data, and we can look at the summaries for the test data. So we have 418 test examples. So approximately 70% of our data is training data, 30% is test data.
Is this the proper, is there something we should take into consideration to keep this ratio between test and training? Again,
typically between 70 and 80% is training and between 20 and 30% is testing. If you do cross-validation, it automatically gives you how you split, but otherwise, if you just don't want to do cross-validation, that's a rule of thumb. So 70-80% is the training data. Okay, so survive column is going to be our target variable, which is binary, and after we start data exploration. So we look at exploratory analysis, that's what we start, is basic statistics. So that's the number of people who, so whether survived or not, survived yes, and survived no. So +1 survived, +0 didn't survive. We can look at their survival by sex, again, when we do exploratory analysis, and we of course spotted that if we look survival by sex, much more females have a much higher chance of survival, as we know from the Titanic movie. So that's the case. We can also look at the class in which they traveled. So first class, second class, and the third class. And as you see, basically it doesn't really matter much for survive, but in not survived people, so many people from the low class, for the third class of the cabin, they didn't survive. And that was, as I understand, mostly because those classes were at the lower level of them. The doors was closed. That's not because they penalized, and the doors are closed, so we just didn't make it to the top. So it's always good to know the background of what you're doing, so to investigate and research your application area. So in this case, it's good to know something about the Titanic crash that may help you in data analysis. So after we look at fares, how much people paid for their tickets. So again, visualize that feature as well. And after we look for missing data. So this basically shows us different columns and whether we have missing data or not. So for most columns we don't have missing data. For age we have missing data. Those are the red dots for cabin. We have a lot of missing data. There are For embarked, actually for the port of embarkment, there is a couple of missing data, and for the fare, there is a couple of missing data. So one thing that we should basically think that, okay, if it's a lot of missing data, probably we drop that as a feature altogether. We cannot fix that much of the missing data. For instance, for the cabin. For the age, we may try to substitute the age, but what we definitely need to try to substitute missing data for the fare, because there are a couple of examples where it's missing, and the same, I think, for embarked. There are a couple of examples where embarked is missing. And that's where we start the data cleaning, missing values. So we look, so we look at the port of embarkment, and we see that only two examples have a missing port of embarkment. They have distorted numbers. So that's what we do. We look at embarked, which has not a number, and now we can think about how we can really figure out in which port those people embarked. And there are only 3 ports where they embark the ship. So I think the Southampton, I think is S, C, and Q. So only three ports: Southampton, Cardiff, and I think something else. In order to that, we start looking at the data. So do we see any patterns whether people survive based on the port of embarkment, and can we use something like that, and so on? Can we get something from a ticket number or something like that? So basically, nobody will tell you how to substitute these missing values. You need to think, can you use other features to figure out these missing values? And that's what we are trying to do. So can we look at the fare they paid based on the port of embarkment? Maybe look at the other passengers who paid similar amounts, and we figure out the port of embarkment. And that's really what we did here. So 16 people embarked in port C, and 13 people who paid a similar fare embarked at the port S. So it makes sense to substitute C for our missing values, because 16 people paid a similar fare between, I believe, 75 pounds and 85 pounds, something like that. So we basically fill in the missing values for the port of embarkment as C, which is Cardiff, if I believe correctly, and we do another validation. We see that now there is no missing values for the embarked code. We fill those missing values. After that, for the fare. So for the fare, in many cases, the fare was also not a number. In one example, the fare that we paid was not a number, so we can fill in this missing value. And what we can do, we can look at the fares for the same class, third class, and for the same port of embarkment, and figure out, and that's what we can substitute. So we take I believe what we did, we take the average of the fares for the people who embarked in the same port and traveled in the same class, and substituted the missing value there. Yeah, that's just common sense, nothing more than that. So this average, the most common fare, or we use the median, so was 8, I guess it was pounds, but in case $8.05, probably British pounds. So for the age, we basically think what we do for the age, how we substitute the age, and we start looking at the ages by class. So we may try to substitute age by class. We may, and that's what we figure out the easiest to do. So you compute the mean age in every class, and you substitute that mean age for the other people who travel in the same class for those people who are missing values, just based on the class. On average age for the people who travel in the same class. That's what was done, and after we verified that now, everybody has their age in the data set.
So I have a question. So in my mind, it would not be hard to imagine that age would be a significant factor to do with survivability or something, that maybe us generalizing about the ages is a bad idea.
Maybe. So there is no answer. What people try to do, how they typically do this feature engineering, because it was a Kaggle competition, they tried to find something that produces the smallest error on the test set. And that's how the competition is really evaluated. So in here, they, instead of really probably doing more practice, they did something that really worked. And that's how we settled. Not necessarily the best idea. So always good to think, can you do something better than that? And probably yes, just need to spend some time figuring it out. As always, the more time you spend, the better your results can be. So next, what we could, we look at the distribution of age by survived, not survived, and we don't really see much of a pattern. So that's one of the answers to the question. Not necessarily age was the key factor to survival, potentially, from this plot at least. And yeah, that's also this age by survival, and we see that those distributions look pretty similar, so probably age is not necessarily was a key factor. Unless there was something really for young people here between 20 and 30 years old, there really you see the survival was higher for than the non-survival. So this distribution looks slightly different for this, and of course for the kids as well. But for the kids we can explain. But it also suggests that we may need to introduce a special category for the kids.
Is it possible to plot like the fact that the value is missing against survivability?
Yeah, you can. Sure, and explore that. So for the cabin, because there were so many missing values for the cabin, we just drop that feature altogether. Now we need to think which features make sense to engineer for us. So what we had in the names, we had the titles: Captain, Colonel, Major, so which represent the social class. So maybe introducing a new feature, which is a social class, like officer, noble, Mr., Mrs., may explain something. Maybe social class was a good factor, was a good feature. So, and that's first feature engineering. So basically, based on these things in the first names, generate the feature that represent the class, and they decide to settle these categories: officer, noble, Mrs., Mr., master. Yeah, that's the classes, and we introduce this new feature called the title. After that, yeah, for the family size, so we basically decided to look at the family size. So this is the number of siblings, and this is whether the person who is there is a patriarch in the family, as I understand, the main person in the family. And they decided, I believe, to do the following. So they decided, based on the number of siblings and that the person is a patriarch, to introduce three categories: whether that person is child, male or female, or child, adult, male, adult, female. So three categories that potentially explain the class, and for that they introduced these actually they introduce the family size, and after they introduce the person, which contains these three classes: male, female, or child. And after they encode this as two dummy variables.
But why it's not converted to the numeric?
Well, it will be done later on. You can just convert everything at once. So what really you can do, first generate features like this, and after you convert the title, convert the person to the dummy variables, and there is automatic functionality inside the code to do it for you. And you do not need to worry that in this case, for instance, there were the number of categories in the title was, I believe, 7 or something, so it will create 6 dummy variables automatically for you. Dropped useful features. Now, passenger ID is useless, name is useless, we can add to name, so we extracted the title from name. So sex is dropped because we introduced the 3 types: child, male, and female, so we drop the sex. So ticket number is useless, number of siblings, and the person is patriarch in the family was dropped. So that's the features that remain. First, this is survival is our target variable, class, age, pair, those are already numerical. This port of embarkment, this categorical, needs to be converted to dummy variables. Title is categorical, needs to be converted to the dummy variables. Family size is already numerical. Person is categorical, needs to be converted to the dummy variables. And that's what we do, convert categorical variables to the dummy variables. Okay, so that's what we got. We got these dummy variables, and for instance, for the port of embarkment, 2 dummy variables because there were 3 ports of embarkment. For the person, there was three categories: male, female, and the child. So we need just 2 dummy variables, and so on. And this is the final set of features that we will include in our regressions, around 15 features probably. Now that we have, after we build the logistic regression model, introduce some new functions which I will explain later. So yeah, we split our data into training, testing data set, as always. Here, I believe we do it randomly. And in this case, 30% of data is test set, 70% of data is a training set. So yeah, there is this function, train test split, that you give it all the data, you tell how much it should be test, how much it should be training, you give it some initial random state, so to initialize your random number generator for the splitting, and it splits the data randomly for you.
Even if you have separate test set, even with this we split again.
What we have here, so basically we loaded 2 files, and we just combine those into one, after we randomly reshuffle the training and test data. You may want to scale your features. Again, as we discussed, that doesn't change the result of the logistic regression algorithm, but it may speed up the optimization algorithm. When you scale your values, your features, it may speed up the optimization algorithm that minimizes the cost function. Again, useful to do it. Doesn't change the results for linear logistic regression at all, but may converge faster.
You mean speed up, like takes the computer less?
Yeah, instead of 2 minutes, takes 1 minute. Yeah. So, oops. What else we have done? Yes, split data in the labels. Yeah, what we've done. Next. Yeah, we scale values, create and fit the model. So after we create the logistic regression model and we fit it. So we train our model on the training data for features and for the target variable. And that's actually what it returns you. When it returns you the results, it basically shows which options we use. So for instance, the value of our hyperparameter was used the default value of 1. We didn't change it. We said use the default value of our hyperparameter C, which we call lambda. For instance, tolerance of conversion tolerance for optimization algorithm. So which penalty to use? By default it uses L2 norm, and so on and so forth. So you can look at this maximum number of iterations, so basically it reports which parameters were used of running the optimization model. Now validate the accuracy on the test set. So we got our coefficients of logistic regression, and now we can test the results on the test set. We fit the model on the training set, and now we run this predict on the test set, and we compare the prediction to the true values of the target value. And what we do here, when we evaluate the results for the binary classification, we typically compute something which is called the confusion matrix, which is the matrix that contains 4 numbers. So true positives, true negatives, and false positives, false negatives. And based on that, we compute the accuracy. So the true positives and true negatives, total multiplied by total number of examples, that gives the accuracy. In this case, 86%, 86.5% is the accuracy, is the error. Error is one measure of the accuracy. We can remember we talked about this critical application, so which is more important, false positives, false negatives. So we may redefine the accuracy if it's more convenient for us, because just accuracy counts correct number of classified cases, which is 86.5. But maybe we are more care about people, like it was in the tumor case. We do not miss the people. We do not want to miss the people who have tumor, and in that case, we are not that much interested in the accuracy. We are interested in the smallest possible number of the false positives, I guess, in this case. Yeah. So in that case, we will be reporting not the accuracy. We will be reporting another accuracy measure, which is called either precision or recall. We may get or response score. So we may get to those, but for today, not really. Don't want to spend too much time on that. So after that, so what we do the cross-validation, as I said. Now we can reshuffle our training set with the test set. So in this case, we choose to do the 10-fold cross-validation instead of 5-fold cross-validation. And we can compute the error, average error across the 10-fold cross-validation. So when we do, you see we compute the error for each fold. For the first fold, this was 80%. For the second fold, it was 86.5%. So this is the error on this test set for the first fold. Second is the error on this test set for the second fold, up to 10 folds. And after that, we compute the average error across 10 folds of the cross-validation. This is really what I said. So this is much more precise evaluation of the test set error, because we average 10 faults, 10 different test sets.
And 3.5%, this is deviation of the...
Yeah, it's standard deviation of the errors across 10 faults. If we didn't do that, so what we would think that our true accuracy is 86%, but it's not. You see, it's imprecise. So the much more precise error, the much more precise accuracy is 82.27. Otherwise, we would see that it's 4% more accurate if you didn't do the cross-validation. So, and then there, of course, is 1 minus the accuracy. So if you talk about their accuracy, there is 100 minus 82.27, so there in this case is what, 18%. Next, we can look at something which I call the learning curves. And this is really useful to see how good is your data and your results. What we see here, the learning curve shows that how many training examples you used, from 100 to 800 training examples. And after that, you see your training accuracy and your cross-validation accuracy. And you see that after some number of examples, those are getting pretty close to each other, which means that we are doing pretty good. So that's how it should be. Typically, training score should be a bit more higher than the test score, and that's what we see.
And the colored bands are the error bands.
Yeah, those are basically the error bounds. So I think this is like 95% confidence or something like that. Now we do the hyperparameter tuning. As I said, what we can do, we can change the value of our hyperparameter in the cyclic learning is called C. We select this range of about 10 different values of the hyperparameter from 0.001 up to 100, and we rerun our model with different values of the hyperparameter. In this case, C, which we call lambda in our results. What they also try to do, they also try to run different optimization algorithms to see which one performs better or faster. So the Newton, the quasi-Newton, so this is the Newton, it's one of its variant, conjugate gradient Newton, this is the quasi-Newton algorithm, and the other two, one of these should be the gradient descent. Yeah, I guess Z is gradient descent, and this is some other optimization algorithm solver. And after that, yeah, we also do inside the cross-validation together with the hyperparameter tuning. That's what I explained over there, and we get the results. So what it says, so it shows that best chosen values of the hyperparameters. The best value of the hyperparameter C is 0.5. So it's different from the default value of 1. So when we tune them, this is the best performing optimization algorithm, and the score achieved under this is better than with the hyperparameter tuning. Before it was, so we gained 0.5%. This hyperparameter. So before it was 82.2, yeah, I guess. Now with the hyperparameter tuning, we got slightly bigger. So what it was? Yeah, it was 82.87. Now with the hyperparameter tuning combined with cross-validation, and hyperparameter tuning is called the grid search. You just search across this grid of the possible hyperparameters. So we got to we increased the accuracy from 82.2 to 82.7. That's what we gained 100% by choosing the optimal value of the hyperparameter C.
How do we measure this accuracy?
Accuracy is a number of correctly classified examples out of the 100. So the 82.7% of examples are classified correctly, whether survived or not. The remaining 17.3% classified incorrectly.
On the train data or on the
No. On the test data, average across the 10 cross-validation faults.
We can compare it with the base accuracy. If you compare the number of non-survived people in the whole set, I think.
This is actually pretty much the true estimate of our error. That's the best estimate of our error when we did the cross-validation, when we did the hyperparameter tuning. That's the best accuracy. Error is 1 minus accuracy that we can achieve. Now basically we cannot do anything better unless we get more data, unless we try another algorithm, not logistic regression but something else. That's it. Basically, or unless we engineer some additional features that may improve the explanatory power of our features. Basically, you stop here unless you can do these three things. Get more data, in that case you can improve. This, engineer more features, in that case you improve, or try another algorithm. For instance, decision trees or neural net instead of logistic regression.
But the question is, to which extent our model is useful? For example, if we say that everybody will die, what will be our score?
So if you, in that case, it's going to be around, I believe, 60%. Yeah.
Okay.
That's another thing to take into account. If your data set is imbalanced, in this case it's not imbalanced. 60% survive, 60% survive, yeah, 40% die, I guess.
No, I think 60. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's not that then. In many cases, our data set will completely imbalanced. In the cases fraud, not fraud, typically when you consider case fraud, not fraud, 5% will be fraud, 95% will be non-fraud. So if you predict everything as fraud, sorry, not non-fraud, you will get automatically, of course, 95% accuracy. That's a problem. And in that case, you need to use special enhancements to machine learning algorithms to deal with the unbalanced data. Again, always good to verify the percentage of class 0, percentage of class 1 in your data set. Because if it's really imbalanced, oh yeah, you just predict everything to be 0 and everything to be 1 and you get very high accuracy. If you don't pay attention to that, yeah, too bad.
Oh, so, but we're using knowledge outside of this to know that fraud is a case where there's a small, it's an unbalanced set. Are there tools to detect unbalanced sets?
Yeah, but there is no unique way to deal with unbalanced sets. There are a number of ways to do it. You can do resampling from the unbalanced set. So basically, you try to artificially enhance the number of the fraud cases by drawing more and more from this limited 5%, which is artificial technique, and it's helpful, but you cannot really do much. So that's the limitations that we do. So probably in that case, you shouldn't use typical machine learning, supervised machine learning algorithms for that case. You may use something like outlier detection, which are more suitable for the imbalanced data. So you treat fraud as an outliers and use the outlier detection instead of this type of machine learning algorithm. So basically there are ways to deal with imbalanced data, but that's a problem. When you have more than 80% of the data in one class, that's a problem. Everything else is okay, so if it's...
And that's 80 is right on the threshold?
Sorry?
The threshold for unbalance is 80?
It's typically yes. Or which still means that you can get a very simple algorithm will give you accuracy of 80%. Predict just one single class. And the last step is now we have our coefficients of the regression and we can predict for the new passengers that come in, we can predict whether the person survived or not. That's the prediction part. So that's all. In this case, it's, prediction part is not really because there are no new people, we're born on Titanic so that we can predict, but that's, in general, that's how we use the results. We did our modeling, we did the hyperparameter, we did consolidation, we ended up with the final values of our coefficients theta, and now we just use those for any new examples that come in.
Did you use? Did you make your own model, or you used model which win Kaggle prize?
That's one of the models that were ranked top in the Kaggle competition. So the developer decided to share it as an example because it shows the full cycle of the machine learning process.
Okay.
Even so, it's not that interesting because in some case, in some sense, just because Kaggle runs a very specific case of the competitions. So basically, in the competitions, you fight for the very, very minimal improvement in your score and your ranking, and that's all what you do. So and you have the limited data set, so they just give you the data set. You cannot really collect any additional data, you have no flexibility. So it's interesting to take part in Kaggle competitions, but it's very limited. So those cases are just small portion of real data science use cases.
Artificial use case.
It's good to learn how the algorithms work and all this stuff, but it's not necessarily give you much practical knowledge about data science. Because you don't necessarily know how the data was collected, they just give you the data. You cannot get additional data. You may not understand some of the features that they give you, so it's subject to your own interpretation. So we just provide one explanation what is that, but how that was collected, you may not know whether there is some dependencies in your sample and things like that. So
that's penalty for overfit models also, because you're not actually using the primary.
No, but overfit is not the problem, because what they do, you submit your model, you submit essentially, you say, okay, I have chosen the logistic regression model, and you submit your Cartesians, and they test it on the data set that your model have never seen. So they have their own validation data set, and that's how they compute the score, which you don't see. And they basically run your model on their proprietary data, they compute your score, they post it on the website, and how the place in the competition is determined for you. So we have this holdout data set in addition to, you split your own data set into training and testing, but they have holdout data set, which is their own test data set that they don't show to you.
And you can make attempts.
Yeah, typically you can make multiple attempts to resubmit your model, or even unlimited number of attempts.
You submit, get feedback, watch your accuracy, you see you in the ranking, and can improve it.
All the way.
Okay, so as we have not that much time remaining for today, so I will not go to lecture 8. Let's just talk a bit about visualizations. For 10-15 minutes, you had a course about visualization, so that's lecture 7, visual analytics. So that's something a bit more relaxing. I also posted a number of Python examples for visualizations in Python. That's what probably you didn't do in the visualizations course. You used Power BI for visualizations,
Tableau.
And R. So in this case, what I did for the Jupyter notebooks, I created 3 Jupyter notebooks that shows you visualizations in Python using 3 Python packages, which you can be used for your modeling. So this is lecture 7, and there are 3 Jupyter notebooks. Matplotlib is the main visualization library in Python, Matplotlib, but there are 2 more that I will show. So basically, and all has examples of different types of plots that you can use, how you plot the line, how you plot the bar plot. So different types of the bar plots, stacked bar plots, horizontal bar plots, stacked bar plots, pie chart, whatever, subplots when you plot multiple images on the same image. Legend, how you add the legend to this, or this type of things. Legend location, how you move legend location, how you do different annotations on this and put additional grids into your plot. So this, how you relate these numbers, how you use other type of syntaxes like in MATLAB for plotting different functions, or different marker styles that you can use on your plots. Scatter plots, histogram plots again, different types of histograms, box plots. That's what we use for showing percentiles in statistics. So that's the first package that we can use for visualization. Second package is using pandas built-in functionality for visualization. So pandas has not only functionality to work with spreadsheets, with pandas data frames, but also visualize those. So we get our data frame as an example, our spreadsheet, or pandas data frame, whatever you prefer to call it, and we can play with it and we can visualize it. So you can plot that as a histogram, or you can have a different type of the histogram. You can put the lines together in the histogram to separate those. You can change colors in the histogram. You can do this type of things. You can plot it plot as an area. Plot, you can combine different blank plots into one. You can use stacked bar plots, line plots, scatter plots, color-based plots where you have kind of heat maps, sizes based on another column, again box plots, this hexagonal box plots, kernel density estimation plot where you plot some sort of distribution or density. So that's what we have. And probably most advanced out of these three visualization techniques is Seaborn in Python. Yeah, so you basically need to install it. And after we get our data and we start plotting. So this is a technique that was used in the Titanic example. So we use the Seaborn for the plotting functionality. So again, the bar plot, count plot, box plot, another hue plot or another box plot, violin plot, another hue violin plot for males and females separately by by day of the week, something, and the total bill cycles. You can try to plot this multiple dimensionality. So essentially, what we do here, they combine three-dimensionality of the problem. That's the total bill that they pay, whatever by the day of the week, and by sex. So three-dimensional plot in 2 dimensions with this type of violin plot. Street plot, again, you can plot the same things as a street plot, jitter plot. Again, now this split into males and females. Yeah, something similar. Swarm plot. That's a nice one plot. A categorical plot, female distribution plot. You can plot the distribution. You can fit the curve into that histogram of your distribution. Yeah, KDV, joint plot. Yeah, when you plot 2 dimensions, you plot the distribution for feature 1 and distribution for feature 2. And that shows you some sort of correlations as well. So yeah, that's now you overlay this curve over your distribution. Per plot for basically when you again plot these three features, total view, amount of heat and size, and you basically show the distribution of each of those, and you show this pairwise connection. So 3-dimensional data visualized in 2 dimensions. Yeah, here you can overlay it with sex, male or female, separately with colors on the same plot. Yeah, rank plot, whatever that means. A regression plot, so you can plot your data, you can plot your regression line with confidence intervals as well. Yeah, and here you can basically plot this for 2 different groups, males and females, and see whether another way to visualize the hypothesis testing where these 2 lines have the same slope for both males and females, and those look pretty close to each other. So probably in this case you reject the hypothesis of males and females being different in this case. Yeah, that's separately the same stuff for the males and females. Grids. Yeah, that's another plot of different dimensions for the iris data set. So you plot these 4 features, sepal lengths, petal widths, to see how if those are correlated to each other. Maps, regions, things like that. Again, some other pairwise plot. Here is for the 3 categories. Plots for 3 categories. What which of those? Yeah, that's our 3 classes: Setosa, Versicolor, and Virginica. So we can see those separately in the plot. Yeah, face grid, something smoker, yes, time killer. Yeah, joint grid, matrix plots. This is how you plot the confusion matrices. This annotation, so you can put the numbers there and the colors. And this is months and years plot. Yeah, something like that, and cluster map. Well, this is really cool. So when we do clustering, you can use something like that to visualize your clusters. Yeah, pretty advanced. Seaborn is pretty advanced, so for visualization. So feel free to explore and use. And just to finish, probably 5 minutes, just to show you some slides about the visual analytics. Okay, so this is probably the classical visualization people would like to show. Yeah, Maxim probably showed it to you, yes?
And not only Maxim, also Nicole showed.
Yeah, I think it's the third time you've seen it.
Yeah, it's exactly. In that case, you know what it is. Let's keep it. But visualizations not need to be that advanced. So visualizations should tell a story, should convey you some story. And this is also the visualization that conveys a story, even so it's much simpler. So it's a revenue of one product of Apple and the revenue of the whole company, Microsoft. And you can try to interpret and make conclusions out of it. So for instance, one conclusion, maybe if you do one product properly, it can bring you more revenue than all products, so of your company. That's a traffic plot. This is a plot that we have done at work, so it shows different portfolios, a different portfolio of 1,000 financial assets. The size of the bubble is the number of units of that asset that you have in your portfolio. Dark color is long position, light color is short position, and when we change the trading budget, that's how your portfolio changes. So you can basically do animations and try to convey as much of the results as you can. Historical visualizations, you can visualize videos by recognizing, for instance, that person worked on the platform and after they jump on the rails and create the heat map where the person spent more time to identify whether the person left some dangerous stuff, for instance, here. So that's how videos are now processed automatically. There are different visualization types. I'm sure that Maxim has covered those. And there are these best cases, which visualization type you use for encoding different things. For instance, when you have features which are quantitative, ordinal, categorical, and relational. So we know what is categorical. We know quantitative, ordinal is ordered categorical, and relational when there are relations encode the relations, which we didn't really see as features yet. Visual grids, how you design the visual grids, for instance, for the newspapers. That's a visual grid of the New York Times newspapers, where you put these visual elements that catch your eye immediately when you look at their website, and in that places probably you have the advertisements. So again, how to optimally allocate those visual grids on the layout of the website or the newspaper in the past. Dashboards, now pretty much everything is done.
It's done like it's analyzed where people usually steer.
Yes. So as I understand, this is, I wouldn't think that I'm an expert in this area. So first, attention span, so where you spend more time, and of course it should be overlaid with the news that are probably interesting for you. In that case, you pay more attention. How this should be flashy, how it should be customized for you. There are a lot of things there, a lot.
Yeah, there's also, I know that in layout grids there's also like maximizing like information density, but retaining people looking at it.
In general, maximizing the revenue on that website, typically, or which can be, of course, your attention can be projected into the revenue. Everything is pretty much now done in the form of the dashboards. They show different visualization in the form of dashboards, so you can grasp what's going on in from one look. That was web page analytics dashboard. This is market analytics dashboard, and people are typically getting rid of the spreadsheets and going to visual analytics in the tools such as Power BI, Tableau, used for business intelligence instead of using Excel. That's an IBM product that is Cognos, but who cares? So people try to visualize resumes. That's again to simplify the life of recruiters. So here is, for instance, comparing 4 different candidates by showing them in these different colors experience, education, and things like that. People do infographics, which to catch attention, and use different social media where infographics work or doesn't work. This is one of my favorite infographics, how to make a graffiti from moss. So, it's a graffiti. So you basically, in the blender, you put the moss, you put mock there, mix it with buttermilk, you blend it. After you put it into the bucket, you paint with it, and after you spray it with water, and it grows, and you get this cool graffiti. Wow. Yeah, I like this infographic, so I decided to put it there, even so it's... We can try it on the wall of Kids Full of Economics. Don't tell that I suggested it. Yeah, other visualizations, just showing some that I like. The alumni network, This is an interesting hype cycle of emerging technologies from last year, where we show which technologies are going to be reaching the plateau of productivity in less than 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, more than 10 years. So as we see, for every autonomous driving level 4, more than 10 years, according to their opinion. Level 5, who knows even, it's not even ready.
Where is data science?
But we have different parts of data science over here. So we have
Deep learning.
deep learning here, IoT there, virtual assistants, which is data science. So pretty much half of the things here, autonomous vehicles, data science,
It means that
artificial general intelligence. It's only started in more than 10 years.
We're buying high, is what we're saying.
Smart dust, and all sorts of things. That's also AI. Flying autonomous vehicles. Flying autonomous vehicles. Edge AI. Anybody knows what is Edge AI? When AI is done on the embedded devices. When you run your computations not on the cloud, but on a device which has much more computational power. Why? To save the energy. You don't want to connect to the cloud. The connection is what's draining the battery of your device, of your smartphone, for instance.
And this clusters innovation trigger big of inflated expectation.
Yeah, that's a stage of that technology. Just starting, innovation trigger peak of event expectations, so people have event expectations. Some of those reach total disillusionment, have their and reach the plateau of productivity. You see, none of those that we show reach the plateau of productivity. Yeah, so most of those will just disappear and will not fulfill our expectations. But some of them will be eventually productized. Smart workforce, smart robots. So pretty much most of the things are here related to AI. The conversational AI platform.
very smart.
I need to find this for the 2019, just forgot to do that. That was from last year, so it changed. And from Gartner, that's a company that is updating it every year. Another graph that shows so basically, at some point, people thought that the price of the gasoline, of gas, will basically, if the price is high, you would be driving less your car. Not really. That graph shows that you see the price of 1 gallon of gasoline, and that's a number of miles driven per capita, and there is no obvious relationship. So essentially, price of gasoline is not really restricting you from driving. Interesting conclusion. This is interesting analytics called population control monitor style. So when we zoom at it, so what it shows. So here are the years, starting from before Christ and now till our time. So each bubble shows the number of people that died due to that event. Color is encoding the location of that event, and here is the ranking of that event. So for instance, what is the biggest? Happened recently, Second World War.
Yeah.
I expected the most people died there, happened in Europe. And when I was thinking about number 2, somehow I thought this should be the First World War, but it's not. See what's that? Genghis Khan Wars. 40 million people died, and that's rank number 2 after the Second World War. And that's the duration of that event. So here, for instance, we have medieval slave trade, so that lasted for centuries, or almost 1,000 years. And how many deaths? 18.5 million people died before the death. So it's essentially very useful visualization to think before you do something. Crusades. Okay, and that's the visualization of the shipment traffic, sea transportation. So some interesting visualizations. Again, just to basically to finish for today. So that's where we stop.
You can see Somali coast, and you see how is the less quantity of the ships near the Somali.
Yeah. Just staying away.
See,
This one. I see. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Okay. So that's all for today. So we didn't. I posted the course project. We didn't have time to talk about it. We'll talk tomorrow. And let's finish with this. It's called this recent caricature in New York. It's called tech support. When people are dropping money, when the AI systems are dropping money to the person, technical support. So again, that was just 2 years ago in New York. Actually, I thought that it was more recent. Okay, thank you, and yeah, see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. So we'll finish the remaining 3 lectures. Lecture 8, Advanced Machine Learning, Lecture 9, Optimization Model, Lecture 10, Simulation Model. That's the plan for tomorrow, the remaining 3 lectures. In Advanced Machine Learning, we will talk mostly about decision trees, neural nets, and unsupervised machine learning such as clustering. Optimization modeling, how to solve optimization problem with constraints. That's what we cover in simulation modeling, how you run practical Monte Carlo simulations. Okay, thank you, Дякую. And today we are finishing earlier and going to the graduation ceremony of the first MBAI cohort.